Good morning. My name is Anthony Wright, and this is my project on debunking myths. The project is go ahead and to take one of the case studies, which I did, which are the myths of the brain, done by Reader's Digest, and also to quote How We Learn by the author Carey, to go ahead and look at this process to go ahead and look at these different myths about the brain and what's true and what's not true. And as a teacher, looking at the studies about the brain and neuroscience and how they're relevant to how we teach or what we're going to teach or how we look at teaching formats based upon these studies. Um, what neuroscience before we go into the actual process right now about let's go ahead and discuss neuroscience. These neurologists or neuro has to do with the brain. That's neuro means brain or neurons or neurons or the connections between the brains that actually function to create memories and actions and all that. So that's neurons. So neuroscience is a study about the brain. And some of the brain right now on different things are supposed to affect how we as teachers teach. Is it the truth? I spoke to several teachers who teach at North Middle School about do they function or do they follow neuroscience formats, and most teachers really do not. It's based upon what works and what doesn't work. So that being said, what works? Let's look at the myths about the brain and what's true and what's not true. The first one is that people use 10% of the brain. Is that true or not true? We use every component of our brain cells to transfer information. So far as 10% or 15% or 20%, you can't actually know, but we do use a lot more of our brain that's given credit for. Okay? The size of our brain. How big our brains that dictate how smart we are? No. Uh, it has to do with, tells us right now, has to do with recollection, memory, ability to absorb information, have to do with learning. So that's not also a myth. Also, left side, right side of the brain. That people think that if they are left sided or right sided, they have a particular skill. Uh, Also, not true. Uh, your abilities, your gifts are not dictated by which side of the brain they're on. It's dictated about your abilities and gifts. Brain damage, is it permanent? No. The brain can heal because the brain can redictate or redirect impulses from damaged parts to go around. Okay? Now, the next one, the brain works as a photocopier. The brain is not a camera. What happened was is that the brain memories complex has to do with a series of neurological connections that when we see things or do things that they are impulses that will always come back when we have to recollect those memories. So memories or we don't act as photocopiers, it's actually a very complex chemical process. Alcohol, does it kill brain cells? In small quantities, no. But heavy quantities, yes. Alcohol does cause things like dementia and blackouts. Now, go very deep. Five senses. Um, the five senses so far as touch, smell, hearing, taste, and sound. They're actually the way our brain interprets this information. So there are proprioceptions, which is your body position, neoception, which is pain. Pain is definitely how the brain interprets information. Time and balance. This is how our brain interprets information as the five senses. All right. Uh, Brain dictates skills. Now, I think that means there's how smart you are dictate how good you are. No. Some people are better than other things than others are. That's just a natural process of life because of certain God given talents. So, and how you learn and how your brain dictates to pick up information. So, the brain does not just take skills, we do. Um, Now, the brain, does it shrink as we get older? Yes. After the age of 40, the brain tends to go ahead and shrink about 1% a year, but it does not affect intelligence. This is what our last two questions are on. Memory declines as we get older. Yes, because we do lose brain cells. But with practice and going ahead and recollection and training yourself to be, learning things, your brain will still retain information even if you get older or as you get older. It takes practice, and that's the kick. And brain declines, again, yes, as we get older, our brain does decline. But again, if we take the time to practice and recollect and study, the brain can still retain as much information as if you were in your 20s. Again, it does take more practice as you get older. Now, things as dementia and Alzheimer's do affect the body's or the brain's ability to remember. But again, that comes with the process. Now, again, as looking at a teacher, so far as studies, personally, because I'm not a classroom teacher, I don't look at studies. But again, when I look at that, what really focuses on is us to not look at what's being told to us, but what we observe in the classroom, because hands-on learning or hands-on teaching is the best way to do business.